Yo, what's up? Welcome to the E Squared Show. We talk about everything: culture, history, society, music, anime, whatever. I'm your host, E the First with the most. And welcome to a really bumming episode, in my opinion, where we talk about the Anglo-Sikh War. I kind of didn't want to talk about this because of how much this topic like really bums me out and like kind of makes me depressed, just because of like how it all ends up turning out, especially against us and not in our favor. But we did the Maharaja Ranjit Singh episode, and now it's only obvious that we do the Anglo-Sikh War. I don't want to cover the second one because the second one is like, it did happen, but it's not where like the first one is more important. It's the bigger one. It made more sense. This is where it was supposed to be in our favor, but it wasn't. And so because of that reason, we're going to cover the first one. And so here we go. We're going to cover the main battles: Mudki, Ferozeshah, and Sobraon, the betrayal and defeat of the Khalsa army, and of course the Treaty of Lahore, where we got manged. It is what it is. Okay. So the British East India Company is very interesting because, in my opinion, all right, this is how I'm looking at history. I don't give a fuck about the academics, right? I am technically hold a degree and all that shit, but I kind of have a disdain for academia because I believe it's a lot of like, you know, having your nose above people, thinking you're smarter than everybody because, oh, like, look at how we look at history. Like, we're so smart. And it's just they're like chatnaying each other, right? Like jerking each other off to basically be like, we're so smart, blah, blah, blah. But the way I just look at it, I'm not saying I'm right. You can obviously like have your own opinions. But the way I look at the British East India Trading Company was, of course, they're a company and their power is basically rivaling that of the King of England at the time. But I think they figured out early on, and this has been my theory, that hey, we don't have to have one guy who's king and everyone has to suck him off and we all like live in squalor. We can all live like kings. We can have slaves. We can have crazy big manors. You know, we can have servants, cooks, chefs, you know, like Downton Abbey shit, but on like a much bigger scale. So you have so many people, essentially like an oligarchy, a senate of people that are like, okay, listen, don't fuck up the program here, right? We got a really good thing going, and the more we do it together, the more we're in line. Like all our interests are the same, the survival of the company. Don't fuck it up. And because of that, they were able to thrive. Because of that, they were able to essentially defeat us, because there wasn't one guy going like, I want to be the head of the company. It's like, you have enough money in your pocket. You got your slaves back at home. You got your servants, your cooks, your big manor, your posh lifestyle. What else? You're literally living like a king. And so because of that, I believe that the British East India Trading Company was so effective, because it wasn't like this clamor for like who could become the top or and stuff. They probably did have that stuff, but enough people were down with the mission and at the top that they could work together enough to really bring the world to heel. So in the 1600s, they came to India as a private trading company, and they also have a private army at this time, and they slowly just expand their territories. And by 1757 and 1772, they take Bengal. And by 1840, most of India is under the British, either by princely states that they have like agreements with, or just direct control. And this is what you can also say is the catalyst of why Maharaja Ranjit Singh like basically goes, yo, we're going to fucking make the army wild. Get the Europeans in here, get these people. Because he's like, if these fucking randos are literally like bringing soldiers in, because you also got to remember, right? Like the Suez Canal isn't like fully a thing yet. And so they're still having to like at sometimes go around the Horn of Africa, and yet that they can still field these amazing armies and just destroy the homegrown soil of people. Yo, what are they doing? And then Ranjit Singh basically makes an army that literally could have like given Napoleon a run for his money, because he had the secret sauce, which is the Khalsa. And so 1845, the commanders of the British East India Company, or the leaders, are Sir Henry Hardinge, the Governor General. And in this picture, you can see that he only has one arm. The other one was lost, I believe, at the Battle of Waterloo. I could be wrong about that. And then Lord Hugh Gough, Commander-in-Chief, basically the guy running the show out there. And some other major generals, Major General Smith, Major General Littler, and Brigadier General Wheeler. Now, the goofs of the Khalsa. You have Lal Singh, the Prime Minister, who was having a secret affair with Maharani Jind Kaur and was smashing her box. Tej Singh, who is a commander-in-chief of the army, Gulab Singh Dogra, who just happens to become the king of Jammu Kashmir right when the Anglo-Sikh War ends, and then Ranjit Singh Majitiya, which I believe might be related to the modern Majitiya, and he's a general of the Philor Fort. So Lal Singh is a guy out of obscurity, a shopkeeper, and it's been basically said that he was a Hindu who took Amrit to become a Sikh and like got a higher place in court, you know? And the fact that people started doing that, like you end up with people who aren't really about it, but they know that they have to look the part, right? This is kind of like just in Sikhi in general, where people who aren't Sikhs don't really care about this whole situation, but can do the look. They get the look good enough, the pug, the dadi, all that. And so that, you know, we accept them into our ranks. Also because, you know, we as Punjabis are just brain dead in general. And so Lal Singh, who secretly is writing with the British to basically get his position up after the war. He's also having a secret affair with Rani Jind Kaur. A lot of people say that this is true. And later in life, he says that never happened, but it would make sense because then somebody would have killed him for sure. Because they would have been like, what the hell? Like, you were like basically like making the Rani of Ranjit Singh impure and stuff, whatever. And also you got to think about that. Rani Jind Kaur, by the time the first Anglo-Sikh War pops off, is 28. How many of you could run an empire effectively at 28 with also a son, a baby, basically? So Lal Singh is public enemy number 1 for the Sikhs after the fact, and Tej Singh is number 2. Both basically pussies who fucked everything up. And Gulab Singh Dogra is making secret agreements behind the back because he just wants Jammu and Kashmir, right? Like nobody really gave. This is why I'm saying like why the British East India Trading Company mentality was more superior. Because instead of all 4 of these guys being like, all right, listen, we take this over, we fuck the British up, we can start cutting other parts of India into our own little princely states. Instead, they're like, we're fine with, because like Lal Singh by the end of the war is basically like excommunicated to Dehradun with like 12,000 rupees a year or some shit. Tej Singh is given like control of like certain parts, gets his own little princely state situation, and is also like controlling Amritsar. You know, you could have had way more, but you know, you betray the Khalsa, you get crumbs. That's how I would say it. Okay. 1845 is the road to war. Rani Jinda and the Lahore elite want to destroy the powerful Sikh army through war. Now, Dr. Priya Atwal has a book, and she's on Rambling the Sikh podcast, basically being like, no, that's not what happened. Everyone was just against her, and she didn't want this to happen. But no, I am not going to make Rani Jind Kaur this like crazy victim and stuff, because there's no evidence where she said, no, let's all chill out, right? The Khalsa army, or the Fauji Khas, the Sikh army that was created by Ranjit Singh, they were all just basically like you got to understand, the shit got so fucked by that time because they're not getting paid. There's no real wars being fought because of all the civil unrest happening, the civil wars, the coups and things like that. So most of them are without pay. So they're doing Lut Mar Khalsa situations. They're setting up panchayats, and like it could have got to a situation where Maharani Jind Kaur, not even just a Jawahar thing, right? So the Khalsa army kills her brother because he was getting a little bit too big for his britches. So like, fuck this guy, boom, done. But it was also a situation where I think she was afraid that now there's no other Ranjit Singh heirs. If Dalip Singh accidentally dies, these panchayats are just going to try to assume power themselves. Maybe the Akalis make a move, right? And go, let's just go super Khalsa with the empire or whatever. So I think she's thinking like, yo, first off, these guys aren't getting paid. They need to get paid. Send them off to war. And from their Luttamar in Khalsa, they'll get paid. So I don't have to deal with that. The loot will pay them. A. B, if they go and die, and basically leave the British at bay, we'll maybe get a deal with the British, and then we'll be safe to get the throne, and then the Panchayat situation or somebody rising from their ranks wouldn't take the throne. Because realistically, those two things always happen in history, right? You see in World War II, Hitler tries to think that at the end that if he just fights the Allies enough to kind of get them like morale lowered, that he can cut a deal with them. And then the second thing is it's always you have the empire, the republic going, and then when you have strife and the military starts acting up, they'll elect somebody within their ranks to kind of lead, or their general. So if the Sikhs elected one of their own generals as like, we fuck with you, you're the guy, they could have made him the emperor of the Sikh empire, which is basically what happened with Caesar and basically what happened throughout like most of human history. That's always what happens. So Rani Jind Kaur is thinking, get these guys the fuck away from me, so that they're lutmaring away, they're doing their decision making away, and if we can weaken them and still cut our deal with the British, that's good enough. And so most evidence shows that she was having an affair with Lal Singh. She's 28 years old, and the British, like, if they're saying this propaganda because they're trying to convince the Sikhs, so here's the thing, right? There's all this like colonial sources, colonial this. It's like, okay, fine, I get it. They want to shit talk us, or they want to shit talk other people and say they're savages and whatsoever. But like, I don't see how that serves like any purpose for anybody, unless they were basically getting the propaganda of like, she's immoral, she's having affairs, and she's being a hooer and all these things, and writing it in the language of the Sikhs. So like Farsi and like Punjabi or whatever, and like distributing it to them on some like war pamphlets type of situation. And so if they're not doing that, they don't really care to convince the Sikhs that she's immoral. They're not trying to make a coup happen on the internal, because I think they had some realization that the Sikh army was strong enough on its own. So I do believe that, she's having a good old time, and she's like, we need to continue this time. I have love for my son. I truly believe she loved Dalip Singh, and she wants him to be the Maharaja. So get these guys weekend so they don't fucking elect their own guy. Get them the fuck out of here so they can loot and whatever. So I do believe that she was the catalyst for this. Of course, Gulab Singh Dogra, he conspired, and basically what they were doing was, we'll tell you exactly where they're going to fight, what the battle positions are, how bad they're going to be, and we'll put them in bad places, which every single one of those things I said happens. And Mudki, Ferozeshah, and Sobraon, one of each one of those situations. And so they're basically just trying to cut this shit up to enhance their own pockets, which is just like the saddest thing. And this is what weak men do. A weak man, right, is fine with just a little bit, okay? Because a little bit, like, a real banda, a real man is either fine being like, I don't give a fuck about all the jewels in the world, or I'm ambitious enough to get all the jewels in the world, right? But a weak man is fine with like one ruby, And you might think that's kind of like, what the fuck is this guy saying? But like, look, Lal and Tej saying they were fine with just a couple of diamonds, when they could have probably taken over all of India. The Sikh army was massive at that point. They could have stomped through, and the British also admit on their side, like, if we lose at Ferozeshah, it's over for us. Straight to Delhi, straight over all of India, they'll take over everything. And so Lal and Tej Singh are not thinking like this, right? Lal Singh is like a bookkeeper or whatever, and opportunist, right? So that's why opportunists throughout history, Machiavelli, whatever, it's always like, don't trust these people. If you're a man and you have like opportunistic people in your circle, don't fuck with them. They'll sell you it as soon as they can for just a little bit of dane, for just some crumbs. And that's why real bandas, either you get the whole pie or I'm fine with none of it. You got to go extreme on that side. There is no gray when it comes to life and death situations, because life and death, there's either living or dying. The gray is worming and weaseling your way around to be somewhere in the middle where you don't have to die, but you have to live in shame in life. This is like some real honor code type shit, you know? Okay. So by 1845, the British are assembling the boats across the rivers, and they're moving troops to Ferozepur, which is like, in the last episode of Ranjit Singh at the end, I was basically saying how like the Sikhs took that as like, if you're getting closer, this is war. And so they're getting rowdy, they're getting lit, they're going to the Samad, and they're like, yo, it's time to go to war. Sikh army mobilized, and they start marching south. Okay, so let's see how this works. Okay, so Control Alt. Oh shit. All right, I have a pen. All right, cool, that works. Okay, so here we are. The Sikhs are marching from around Amritsar. That was really bad. So they're marching this way. Okay? So some of the fights are going to happen here, and some of the smaller skirmishes are going to happen here. Lal Singh is coming with 25,000. I should also blank myself out. Whoopsies. Whoops. So, as you can see, you have the main theaters of war. You use right there. Ferozeshah, Mudki. And they're coming in from the Satluj River. So they're crossing, and now all their wars are going to be fought beyond the Satluj River, which is like, now you get into real war tactics. This could get into a tricky situation, which I'll explain later on. So they fight two of their main battles here, and in Ferozepur, this area here, Littler is here with 7,000, Gao with 10,000, and then Wheeler and all these guys are over here. Okay? Now, the Majitiya and Jodh Singh, they don't really do much. They do some skirmishes. They get some of the, like, he's doing well enough, right? He's outnumbering the Sikhs. And what makes it so sad is look how badly outnumbered the British forces are. 40,000 to what? Maybe 20 Gs, 20,000 at best, maybe. And they still end up losing, okay? It's pretty sad. So let's get back to this. One sec. Anyways, what ends up happening is they cross the Sutlej River on December 11th, 1845. So this is in winter. Under the command of Lal Singh and Tej Singh, each one having a certain, like, a division or whatever. And by December 13th, the British declare war. And Lal Singh sends a message to British Captain Nicholson, who was kind of like his connect during that entire time, that the Sikhs' main camp is at Ferozeshah. And he moved them to Loham and encountered the British at Mudki. So they know that the British encampment has 10,000, and Lal Singh is, or Tej Singh's idea is, we're going to slowly cut down the Sikhs. So we have 18,500. Let's send 3,000 guys to go fight them at Mudki. That's what happens. Battle of Mudki occurs. And on December 18th, 1845, from 4 p.m. midday to night, they fight. So Lal Singh dips out like a pussy. And then the British cavalry attack. And so the Sikhs slowly retreat into the woods. But this is where even the Sikhs at like with a fucking sheep of a commander and just straight bawling out like Khalsa does, they fucking pop off. And so here's a picture showing the Muslims who were really good artillery gunners. Like they ran the artillery situation. It was like a really well-known thing. And so they had, like, the Sikhs had the superior guns, which is like pretty wild, you know. And this is like an example of that, showing a little artillery battery. And this is another picture of Mudki. Okay, so let's look at the battle itself. All right, so I'm about to go a little bit into like battle plans with you guys. So in this shrubbery area, the Sikhs have guns. So the guns are pointed this way and this way. So they're causing havoc amongst the cavalry. So this is the cavalry. They're pushing up against the Sikhs, right? 2 walls. But they get into perfect range of the cavalry. So there's, boom, wipe out. So the British take about 100, 150 cavalries. Here you can see the British guns. All right? Right here, the British guns. And they're basically forcing the Sikhs backwards. And so once the Sikhs get in the trees, this whole area becomes a kill zone because the Sikhs excel at hand-to-hand combat. So you have skirmishes happening all throughout the trees, and this becomes a killing ground. Even though the artillery, right, you see the artillery batteries basically that the Sikhs have all along the line here. And so they're basically doing damage to the cavalry. But once they're in the forest, the cavalry is doing nothing, and they've got like pipe shots, guys in the trees sniping. And as the British are running into the woods to encounter this smaller force of Sikhs with their 10,000, where the Sikhs are outnumbered, they're still doing damage to the point that it's almost a stalemate. Because in these woods, the close combat fighting is where the Sikhs and the Khalsa excel. And you can make the argument that the lowest, garbagest Sikh soldier was as good as the highest rated British soldier. You know, you're fighting for your land. You're on death ground. You know, there's a lot of like, yo, we got to do this. We got to pop off for our people and stuff. And the Khalsa does ride for their like land. They truly believe it. And so this whole encounter, about 306 dead and about close to 300 British dead and almost close to 1,000 British wounded. It's not good because it should have been a crapshoot, right? Look at the advancing ability out of Mudki for the British, right? Full force. They've got our batteries perfectly to push the Sikhs back. They've got their cavalry in full force in the front, and there's even some guns left by the Sikhs, and yet the forest becomes a killing ground. Okay. Now, you get to the Battle of Ferozeshah. So that battle happens, and the British want to or think that they've got the upper edge, that, you know, because of the battle placements that Lal Singh did, or Tej Singh, sometimes I'm getting the names confused, that we can just totally wipe these clowns out. That's what they were thinking, right? So they abandoned their camp way back in Mudki and go to Ferozeshah, which is really stupid for them to do. So if you look at a picture where Mudki is and where Ferozeshah is, Mudki and Ferozeshah, there's some distance between them, but when you pick a camp, now this is very important in military strategy, you need to have certain like assets and resources. So they're camped at Mudki, and Littler joins to basically fight them at Ferozeshah, and so does Go. And this is where everything kind of goes wrong, but also right for them, you know? So the Battle of Ferozeshah happened on December 21st, 1845. Littler joins Hardinge and Go. So they have about a 20,000 man army. The British attack the Sikh camp at Ferozeshah, and the repeated British attacks are repulsed in a fierce battle. The British suffer heavy losses from Sikhs, even though the Sikh placements of everything were top tier garbage. Okay, Lal Singh made sure that there was gaps in the lines, and the way he basically set up the defenses were horrible. Now let's go into the defenses. So in traditional military encounters, especially for this time, you don't want this situation. What the fuck? Okay, here we go. You don't want, like, who are you fighting at the north end? The British are all the way over here. Why are you putting defenses on this side? So this whole area up here was a farce. Okay? Lal Singh knows that this is a horrible. And so the British, they're going to attack these flanks right here. Fuck. Right here. These corner edges, that's where the British are going to attack because they're the least reinforced properly. Even the way that the guns are, there's guns that are going to nowhere. They're going to nowhere land. Where are they going to shoot? The entire military is in front of you. The thing that would have made sense right, is to basically have your entire army, so blues for the Sikhs, to be across like this and to curve them inside into basically a front. Okay, you protect your flanks enough, but you allow the onslaught to come, and your cavalry can come from the side and go hit them on the sides, right? And your main batteries are in the front, your soldiers are in the front, and as wave and wave comes, you can basically repel them. And even though they didn't do this version and they did the shitty ass fucking defense, they still repelled them. That's how amazing the fighting force of the Khalsa was. Even though they have these amazing gaps in their fronts, right? These corner gaps that are easily attackable by these British positions, the British couldn't get them. And so the situations for the Brits are not great. They're starving. They're thirsty. You know, their camp is in Mudki. They have no water. They've been fighting. They just fought the day before, and now they're going to go on a full frontal assault. And so, like, wave after wave, they're going. It's not happening. They're not fucking puncturing the line, even though, again, like, the defenses are so bad. So British commanders during the night, the first night of 22nd December, Ferozeshah, are losing it. And so a quote by them is, "The fate of India trembled in the balance. The news came from the Governor General that our attack of yesterday had failed. The affairs were desperate, that all state papers were to be destroyed, and that if the morning attack failed, all would be over. This was kept secret by Mr. Curry, and we were concerting measures to make an unconditional surrender to save the wounded, the part of the news that grieved me the most." That's the diary. Because they had to pop off. The British had no choice but to pop off, because if they lose here, then everybody else is like, fuck the British, we can beat them. It's a credibility war here. If they can't beat the Khalsa, it's a can scene. And so they know they're on the brink of defeat. They have no water, no food. If they retreat to Mudki, they're in a retreat, and the Sikhs can basically fucking slaughter them as they run away. And so the sword of Napoleon was on the battlefield here at Ferozeshah, and the general gives it to his son and goes, ride back to Delhi and give it back. Or like protected type situation. This is a relic. This is like, you know, an artifact of victory that the British had from Waterloo. Take it back. And so they knew it's all over by the morning. There's no way that they can win. They've exhausted too much. They don't have winter clothing. They don't have supplies. They have no water. It's been 18 hours since these men that are fighting have had drinks of water from their canteens. And yet, they lose. The Sikhs do. And so one little quote, never perhaps in our annals of Indian warfare had the British army on so large a scale been nearer to defeat, which could have involved annihilation, Sir Hope Grant says. So the next morning, Tej Singh's guns opened fire. The British artillery did not answer. Then without any reason, the Punjabi guns also became silent, and a few minutes later, Tej Singh ordered the army to withdraw. He just dips the battle. The battle-eager soldiers were bewildered. A Nihang drew his sword, rushed up to Tej Singh and asked him to explain his order. Tej Singh joined the palms of his hand together and said with great humility that he was doing this in the interest of the Khalsa, as he wished to attack the enemy in the rear. The soldiers were mollified and followed Tej Singh. So he came up with some bullshit to basically go like, no, trust me, bro, trust me. And it was then that the men who had fought so gallantly at Ferozeshah the preceding night discovered that their commander Lal Singh had also decamped earlier. Argument and dissension broke out in the Punjabi camp. So basically, these guys would dip the camp, Lal Singh and Tej Singh, leaving their supplies, leaving the logistics part of it, the fucking ammunition, the gunpowder, the cannonballs, everything, and they would just dip, even leaving cannons at times. Okay? And so the British capture Ferozeshah and few remaining defenders are cleared, right? The rear guard is still there, and Ferozeshah had a well in it that was supplying the Sikh camp. And the British finally get their water. They cleared them out, and the Battle of Ferozeshah is ended. And the battle was won by the Punjabi soldiers, but lost by their traitorous commanders. These are just some dope pictures where, you know, the Khalsa is bawling out. But fuck, man, that quote, you know, an army of lions led by a sheep is nothing compared to an army of sheep led by a lion. And so the Jungnama is a poem written by something guy, Khan, I forgot his name. And he writes, Jung Hind Punjab da horn lagga. Dove Padshahi Faujan Pariani. These two sides are really heavy and they're basically like fighting for the fate of Punjab. Aj hove sarkar ta mull pave. Jediyan khalse ne tega mariani. The Khalsa was basically bawling out. Kode admi goliyan nal uddan. Hathi Tinde Sane Ambariani. Tinde was, I think, the name of what they're calling the one-armed guy, you know. Shah Muhammada Ek Sarkar Bajo Faujan Jit ke Ant Nu Haryani. And so the British plunder the Sikh camp at Ferozeshah. It's a fucking mess. They're super thirsty. They're trying to get water. You know, some Sikh stragglers and whatnot are still in the back and they're still killing them and stuff. And it's just a scene, but technically the British won that. And now we get to the most depressing one of all, the Battle of Sobraon. This is where everything basically gets fucked, okay? So whatever, Majitia fights some wars on the side. He sacks a couple of their barracks. At Ludhiana, he captures some forts and defeats the British at Buddhawal and captures hella cargo. And the Sikhs defeated at Aliwal and pushed back into river. Majitia leaves the soldiers in battle and dips. Again, another pussy. And this is like a British advance on the Aliwal village and the retreats of the Sikhs. You know, they're just dipping out slowly. And so there's things that I've mentioned in the other podcast that kind of like relate to this one. And that's the Gurkhas, okay? Or like other Indians that were fighting against the Sikhs. And so a particularly bloodthirsty image depicts the Nusri Gurkhas in action at Aliwal, clearly intent on taking no prisoners. The Gurkhas' famed Kurkuri knives can be seen. And so this picture, I believe, was drawn. It's kind of contemporary. But this later on feeds the feeling in Sikhs and of that time that like all of India had kind of betrayed us by joining with the British. And like they weren't holding back. Like they were like killing us, you know? They weren't like, oh, okay, whatever. Like this no prisoner thing was very brutal. And so they remember it. And that's why the mutiny does not go in the Indians' favor later. Okay, so now we have Battle of Sobraon. This is basically where we lose 10,000 a single day, which for that time was basically fucked because, you know, you don't have armies of hundreds of thousands like you do by World War II, right? Like 100,000 army is fucking insane. So Tej Singh informs the British of the flank so they know exactly where everything is going to be. Tej Singh flees and destroys the bridge. And the Sikhs either attempt to retreat across the river or fight to the death. So now, let's get into why these battle positions are absolutely a dog shit. Okay. So, first off, in warfare, you don't want to have a fucking river on the back of you. This is horrible. This is literally like a last stand waiting to happen with just a single entry bridge that can't fucking funnel all your troops at once. This is a horrible plan, okay? The guns on the other side of the river make no sense, but kind of sense. The kind of sense is like, just in case you guys lose, at least they're on the other side so that, you know, that the fucking other enemy doesn't get them. But it still doesn't make sense because this whole situation is stupid. You don't want your fucking like back against the wall where you're fighting literally back against the wall with a river that can't provide any support or retreat, right? So as you can see, the scene is just fucked. Now, I'll give you an example of another battle that happened in the similar place. This is the Battle of the Hidapsis along the Jhelum River between Alexander the Great and Porus. Okay? As you can see, right? You want to put one side of your army, all right? You would have your army on the other side of the river fully with your flank facing the river. That's fine. Okay? Your flanks can face the river, one of them. But you can retreat backward if shit starts to pop off. You can retreat backwards. And so if you look at where Porus's camp was and where the Alexander's camp was, they were on the other sides of the river. So they fight alongside the river, not against the river. That would have been it. It's a supremely bad battle tactic. So let's go back to Sobraon. So at Sobraon, you want to fight behind the Satluj. You want to draw the enemy into your trap, which would have been, what the fuck, would have been over here, this area. You want to fight them so that they're forced to cross the bridge and they're forced to fight backwards against the river. Or you get them to cross the river and then you do the same thing, Battle of Hadapsis 2.0, where you fight them this way and have them fighting you this way, and you meet in the middle with both flanks facing the river. But you have better positioning because you're already on that side of the river with artillery. But they didn't do that. This is a horrible battle plan. This is asking for death because it's as if you were covering a retreat. That's how this is. But with the one small bridge that then gets fucking destroyed, like, dude, this is as bad as it could possibly get. This is like everything that could go wrong would go wrong. And this is like some Looney Tunes ass shit because the Sikhs are still, like, even with the worst commanders that are literally trying to thwart them, they're like, okay, we're trying to lose. They keep low-key still winning. But this is the point where they're like, okay, we fucked them. They understand the battle plans. They understand the weak points. And they're against a river. Horrible. They're locked. Trapped. It's fucking hopeless. Okay? The best choice would have been fighting here. Right here, where they basically get the British, they draw the British over the bridge, get them to fight them here, and have their artillery perfectly fucking positioned, and then ba-boom. It would have been a Sikh victory, easy peasy. And even, yeah, fuck, man. It's kind of bummer to even talk about the fact that, like, it could have been an easy peasy victory either way. It is what it is. That is history. Okay, so Battle of Sobraon happens, pops off. And what ends up happening is there's a last stand of Sham Singh, Atariwala, and 10,000 Singhs. Jungnama Shah Muhammad writes, Sham Singh Sardar Atariwale, Ban Shastri Jod Vichhod Sotte, Shah Muhammada Singh ne Goriyan de Vag Nimbuan Lahu Nichor Sutte. So basically they popped off. Like, that's kind of what he's saying. So Sham Singh, like Gandalf in the like scene in Helm's Deep, they ride in, last stand, cavalry charge into the British lines, but the guns are like the Khalsa army's guns were kind of like left at certain camps. They kind of retreated without them at some times, even though we had better artillery. Like, we needed them, obviously. And then, you know, there's stories of like how in the camps, when they realized that when the Sikhs realized that these guys were like playing fucking betrayal with us, that they would like one guy would literally take turns to like fucking ream these guys out and basically shit on them, basically like, yo, you sold us out, you know, like, you are gonna have to like go to Guru and God and realize what you did to us. You know, the Sikhs had like the Khalsa army did have that kind of, you know, in their hearts that like, you know, like divine retribution would happen, even if not in this life, it can still happen in the next one. And, you know, that's what they did. They allowed the Sikhs to die and lose. And so the Sikh army is trying to retreat across the bridge. Some of them are gonna fight and die, like Sham Singh, and by the way, like, Sham Singh's daughter marries No Nihal Singh, or Sham Singh's granddaughter, but I think his daughter married No Nihal Singh. So he's a like on an aristocratic level, right? So Sikhs are trying to cross the bridge and they're not. The bridge is destroyed. Some of them are swimming across, and then the British have like a very proper trigger discipline, and they're just shooting them slowly, just like picking at them. No swords, no close combats where they could potentially lose, because they experienced that at Mudki. They're like, let's just pick these guys off, and 10,000 dead in a single day. A A Sikh soldier says to Tej Singh, recorded by Major Carmichael Smith, "We know that you have leagued with the court to send us against the British and to pen us up here like sheep for them to come and slaughter us at their convenience. But remember that in thus acting, you play the part not only of traitors to your country, but of ruthless butchers and murderers. You destroy a whole army, which, whatever its faults and crimes may have been, has always been ready to obey the orders of the state and its officers. We might even now punish you as you deserve, but we will leave you to answer to your Guru and your God, while we, deserted and betrayed as we are, will do what we can to preserve the independence of our country." Like, just straight up, man, like the long defeat, bro. That's what the Khalsa is about. The long defeat. I talk about it all the time, right? In Lord of the Rings, the elves are going to fight against insurmountable evil. They know it's always going to be there. And they know that even every small battle they win, every war they win, they can never rid the world of evil. And yet they fight. And that is the long defeat. That is the ability to be okay and find peace and chardikla, and the fact that life is a constant battle. All right, life is a constant waking up and having to fight against the odds, where the world is crushing you, the universe is crushing you, fucking planets and solars are destroying, suns are being blown up, things are being created out of thin air. And in this chaos, to create order, you must fight the chaos every single day, constantly and slowly. That is the life of the Khalsa. You are willing to fight the battle knowing that it will always end in defeat, because it is fought again and again until your death and into the next life. And the only abode for the Khalsa is God itself. Akala. So February 19th, the British troops end up entering Lahore. So this battle ends up happening end of December. They're probably getting all their shit together. And the Treaty of Lahore is signed March 19th, 1846. The Leap Singh remains the Maharaja, so that's good for Rani Jind Kaur. And Jalandhar and Doab is given to the British, so a little bit of a partition happens. Like, that's always like Punjab's history, right? Partition. The Sikh army is largely reduced and disarmed. The Treaty of Amritsar, Jammu becomes independent kingdom under Gulab Singh Dogra. So he gets what he wanted out of all of this. And the Treaty of Betrayal, December 15th in 1846, so near the end of the year, British resident appointed and troops are in Lahore until Dalip turns 16. So they're kind of running the show, you know. They also ban all other Europeans from being in the Sikh military at that time, and they basically say like dafa ho, get the fuck out. And the Sikhs are not allowed to fuck with any of the Europeans anymore. But the Akali Nihang Singhs have something else to say, buddy. So the Buddha Dal, quote unquote, led by Akali Hanuman Singh, who's 90 years old at this point, an old man, does not surrender to Sobraon. And in Patiala, between 10 to 30,000 Nihangs are killed at the Battle of Sohana, where they were camped out, and the Raja of Patiala, or whoever, you know, this is debated, was which Raja was it, who was it, basically cannon fire, like just murks them. And then the British order a shoot on sight situation, and they're outlawed as criminal tribes, any Akalis. And the ones who do survive, like according to Buddha, the Lord, it's like 3 or 4 people, they all dip out to Hazur Sahib, they go to Nanded, and that's where they end up like continuing the Khalsa tradition. But it was basically like super fucked by this point. You know, that many Nihangs killed in a single night. Like they could have, like just on their own, could have like given the British a run for their money, and the British got lucky that 30,000 wiped out. So like 10 to 30,000, let's just give it like what, 15 plus the 10, 25,000. Armies reduced. Like they did do it better in a way to like preserve their power. And then attack on Sri Akal Takht Sahib in 1846. The Akali's tower, Umritzar. I like how they spelled Amritsar, you know, Umritzir is pretty sick. And so for whatever purpose this elegant and fanciful building was erected, its present name is derived from the circumstances in the War of the Sikhs, when a band of Akalis, those furious fanatics in their blue dresses and bands and chains of steel who had constituted themselves the guardians of the tank and temple, were pursued here after the city was taken and driven from floor to floor till the remnant finally precipitated themselves from the summit rather than yield and confess themselves vanquished. Basically what that means is they fought in the Akal Takht complex level by level, and once they got to the top, jumped off and killed themselves rather than being taken prisoner or having to admit defeat. So let's talk about this. The Sikhs take an L. What I don't understand is how no one just took out Lal Singh and Tej Singh and said, fuck you guys. You guys are betraying us. We don't give a fuck. Like, we're just going to kill you and we'll fucking fight this battle. Like, I don't understand why nobody mutinied and how they could just take it. I just don't understand. Like, it just behooves me, But then there's a part of me that thinks, like, it must be like a hukam. Like, it must have been a situation where, like, what would the future of Punjab had been anyways? The Sikhs would have like gone and started lutmaring Khalsa through India, and they would have maybe gotten stronger. But like, were they really gonna be a net benefit for India by that point? They were only interested in war. The Zamindar system was fucked. Okay, let's be really real right now, right? I think a lot of this it's not directly has to do with the Zamindar system, but the Zamindar system is not great. And for those of you that didn't watch the Ranjit Singh episode, basically you can extol a tax from land, from people who till the land whenever you want, when you want, to basically be like, you owe us. And so this is also a reason why, hot take here, a lot of people didn't fuck with Banda Singh Bahadur, which is why he gets a real bad, like, Ganda Singh writes really positive things about him, but Banda Singh Bahadur gets really, and people call him more like Banda, right? Like, some people say he wore a topi, and like, if you listen to Tarm Singh Nihang, he's like that, piche baitha si. He didn't even fight, but what the thing was with Banda Singh is a lot of like randos are joining the Sikh army at that time, and they're just lutmaring everything, right? Just straight up lutmar Khalsa. And the problem became is that because it was like this lutmaring situation, right? The Sikhs would take, or like the mix of like all these randos and stuff, right? Some were Sikh and Khalsa that wanted to get revenge for the Char Sahibs as the Shahidi, but some were just like whatever in there who saw opportunity in what was happening. When they were going in there, they all these guys, they're taking the money from people's like coffers and like war chests, let's call it, and then the people that are getting robbed from, they're like, okay, well, the Sikhs took our money, now we have to take your money. Like, you owe us more taxes. And so then those random, like, common folk are just like, what the fuck, man? These Sikhs, like, I just got taxed twice because of the Sikhs. So there's a negative sentiment. That type of system that was created that wasn't efficiently taxed, or, like, it wasn't properly laid out, and it became this, like, mafia-esque system, this extortionist system, is one of those things that ends up being like a net negative point for what the Sikhs are trying to achieve. And you also got to look at this, right? Like, military tactic wise, we had it all, right? We had these Europeans, they told us, and I guarantee you that unless they were truly with the British from RIP, or like they were kind of betraying, but they weren't, because the British like, get these Europeans out of here, right? They weren't like, yeah, keep them. They're like, get out. I think any one of them would have said like where your positioning was at the Battle of Sobraon against the back of the water is just so fucking bad. Like, this is like peak like Tardo shit right here. And so it was pretty clear that they were not meant to win this battle. They were not meant to win this war whatsoever. And so sadly, like, I guess maybe it was meant to happen because, for example, like the Meji, I always bring it back to like the Meji Restoration, because the Sikhs, we had our military at that level of like a Western sized empire, right? But we weren't doing the other things. We weren't industrializing like crazy. We were industrializing cannon factories and bullet factories and that type of shit. But we weren't going like, okay, let's get the science popping. Let's get all these scientists here, engineers, architects. Let's build fucking canal colonies and stuff. Like, we weren't doing any of that. And the British were just superior in the fact that they were willing to work together, and they were more... They didn't have that level of honor in them, I will say, right? Like, it's not honorable to, like, obviously you do in battle, like, you want to use intelligence and stuff, and that's part of modern warfare. But the fact that, like, they were just so hell-bent. So my conspiracy is this, right? I believe that they were always going to go for Punjab. It was always part of their plan because of the fact that Punjab was the breadbasket of India, and it just produced so much food. They needed to take Punjab because they needed to resupply their armies as time went on. And so the only way to do that is secure a massive enough food supply, which of Punjab would have been. You know, they had guys that were doing deals with these Maharajas and stuff. They understood the food situations. And if they were going to fully come into India, they needed to secure food supplies. And not just for in the colony of India, but other colonies that were close in Africa and other places. They were going to take that food and take it elsewhere. And so Punjab is like a vital, it's like almost like Jamaica or some of those Caribbean islands where they had crazy plantations where it's like, we need this land as part of a way to feed the war machine of our empire. And so the war was going to happen anyways, but they obviously like got lucky because a lot of betrayal is happening, but it's also happening all over India, you know? And I don't want to say it's like a religious thing because, you know, we could have been just like, yo, tell these guys to like shut the fuck up. And like, you know, there was no fragging. That's always my beef with this whole, when I read this, like no one's fragging their officers to basically be like, you're selling us out, we're going to fight. Like at Ferozeshah, we had it. We were right there. We could have beat them. But the only I'm coping right now. You know, I'm not happy with how the situation turned out. So this is all a fat cope. The only thing I can say in positive was just that, like, maybe we were not meant to at that time because it would have devolved into more civil wars, more stuff, right? Like, we didn't have this mentality of working together. We didn't lock in and tap into that, right? Like, yeah, it would have been a crazy imagining, like, you know, the word Nihang means, people think it's crocodile. It means more something like a Persian fantasy sea dragon. And so it almost feels like it was meant for, in our conquest of the seas to occur. You know, like imagine like Nihangs coming across pirates. Like look at the Nihangs, bro. They look like pirates, bro. Like this guy right here. I have to go all the way to the beginning. Could have done that in a more efficient way. Like this guy right here. He looks like a pirate, man. It's like he has like these grenades strapped to him, a huge chakra around his neck, the beard. Like this is like some Blackbeard looking character right here, man. He could have literally like, just like everything about him is just so unique. And so like the Sikhs could have gone to Sikhs could have been ruling the 7 seas, man. But I think that we didn't have the leadership, and that's why you need the you need to follow the right people. And this goes back to like the whole thing I was just saying in the beginning, that weak men are more detrimental, not only because of their inaction, but the type of action they do. And I also would say that like you needed to create a class of, like Ranjit Singh did leave a mess. I'm going to be honest. It almost seemed like, you know, he had secured the situation, but the Sikhs were never an empire type of people. The Sikh missiles can be described as an aristocratic confederacy. And that's the best way I like to explain it. And that's where we needed to go back to. That served the Sikhs well to get to empire. And the smart thing to do is going, hey, we need to go back to that. Because every single time you see a successful empire, country, or whatever, like look at America. You know, I believe I've heard that like George Washington was down with, or not down, but like they were the people around him, Jackson, Hamilton, all of them, they were down with making George Washington the king, you know, the majesty of America. But he did one term, he dipped out to basically be like this president, the presiding position over the Congress and Senate is meant to be switched out. We didn't have that. People wanted to be in power to stay in power because it seems so fun, right? If you're Maharaja Ranjit Singh, you're, you know, fucking whores all day, doing drugs, drinking, like life is good and great. You want to be that guy. And just like that, the British East India Trading Company men, they wanted to be like that guy, right? And so you got to understand that that's why that system is so perfect, because like look at the Romans, right? The Romans created a system where when the Republic, not the Empire, that you would have a consul, 2 consuls elected. The consuls are basically dictators. 2 of them, they get 1-year terms, and in that 1 year, they could ball out, go do wars, do whatever, reforms and stuff. And the Senate, and then the tribunes, the tribunes, they would basically like hold them in check, because after the year, next people want to get in, so they're like, get the fuck out. And because of that, it's like this revolving door for allowing that position to keep its power intact, because people are like, yo, we want to be part of this as well. But when you don't give the ability for men with ambition to reach a level that can also like pull the reins back on them, you end up with a law saying, a Tej saying that they just want whatever they can possibly get. You know, a little bit of a state, a little bit of a money situation, this, that, the other. That's fine. That's good enough for them. You know, but if you had created a system like the Jathedari system where it's like, you know, somebody else will replace this in a few years, or a better confederacy or better republic, essentially, we could have had a better chance at life to survive and go further. But sadly, we did not. And maybe, you know what? Fuck it. Let's just go into the Second Anglo-Sikh War Part 2. I don't want people to see my what's on my Google Drive because I don't even know myself. All right, here we go. Anglo-Sikh War Part 2. I kind of remember this. I don't. We'll see how it goes. Okay. Here we go. The rebellion. It's not really even a war. It's more like a rebellion. The Second Anglo-Sikh War from 1848 to 1849 lasted 1 year. It's Multan and the Northwest Rebellion, the battles of Ramnagar, Chilianwala, and Gujarat. The British annexation of Punjab is complete. So, the new government that occurs. Okay, 1846, a treaty I talked about, Betrayal, establishes British residency until Dalip Singh matures, the British control of the Sikh government, and Governor General of East India Company, Lord Dalhousie. And I believed he looked at so much stuff and he took it back, and that's like the Dalhousie collection. And the British resident at Lahore is Sir Frederick Currie. Other council members include Tej Singh, Ranjot Singh Majitia, Dina Nath, Fakir Nuruddin, Attar Singh, Shamsher Singh, Nidan Singh. And the council of residency was 8 members. And there's Sher Singh Atariwala, Chattar Singh Atariwala, and the British protectorate. So Kashmir crisis. And in the Kashmir crisis, Lal Singh exiled by the British. Fuck, man, this shit makes me so sad just to think about it. And the Punjab populace considers government as traitors. So the Punjabis are just like, yo, fuck these guys. Jinda is removed from power. RIP. And she's exiled to Benares. And there's a growing anti-British sentiment in people and the Sikh soldiers. So they're kind of getting a little rowdy. And so the Multan Rebellion starts. Look at that picture, eh? March 1848, Governor Mulraj is unable to show accounts and resigns, and resident Currie sends Khan Singh to replace him. Mulraj agrees, supervised by Vans, Agnew, and Anderson. And the soldiers, when they come, attacks Agnew and sparks a mob of soldiers that they just kill the Ghorid. Like, get the fucking Farangis out of here. And Nihang Godar Singh kills Agnew and Anderson. And that's Mulraj Chopra. I don't believe he was a Sikh. And so the soldiers coerce Mulraj into being the rebel leader. They're like, yo, you do it, bro. Like, we fuck with you, do it. And they're joined by nearby troops. The Multan Rebellion force pushed back in battles of Kinyari and Sudesan. The rebels returned to the Multan fort to basically like gather up. They just kind of taken L's because the biggest problem was they didn't have the guns. Okay? They were missing a lot of artillery power because they had lost it from the First Anglo-Sikh War. So, you know, shit's not great. And so July 1848, the British besiege Multan with 1,200 soldiers. Sher Singh Atari is part of the British Lahore force, right? He wants to keep his position, so he's like, yo, fuck them. And now this is where the ghost of Baba Bir Singh comes back. By Maharaj Singh, who was the successor of Baba Bir Singh Naurangabad, a saint soldier figure who makes anti-British pro-Khalsa speeches to rural Sikhs. You know, he's talking about Sosakian prophecies, getting the Khalsa riled up again, man. That's what you need. I got a salotar like that. My buddy got it from me, yo. He's basically out there, like, talking the masses and stuff and becoming this, like, real figure. He was there with Baba Bir Singh Naurangabad, right? He witnessed all that. He was a character. You know, you have, like, a lot of these Khalsa Sikhs on the regular. And he's like pushing that, like, yo, the Sikhs need to fight. The Khalsa needs to get back up. Captain Abbott suspects Governor Chattar Singh of sympathizing with rebels and sends the Pathans against him. Chattar Singh takes over Haripur fort for protection and kills Colonel Kanora. Captain Nicholson orders surrender of Chattar Singh to forfeiture property. So basically, they're thinking Chattar Singh's in on this. He's like, I'm not, but he's like, yo, I got it. They're going to fucking kill me. And Chattar Singh refuses and writes to his son, Sher Singh, for help. Sher Singh leaves the British camp in Multan with his troops and meets with Mulraj. And they get the 6 troops together at Chenab. And the Battle of Ramnagar occurs. There's a delayed response by Lord Dalhousie. Hugo's army repelled by Sher Singh Atariwala. And there's finally a Sikh victory because their mindset is like, yo, this time we're not going to be betrayed. We have real fucking bande that are going to do this shit. Like, they're not going to fuck with us. But the problem is we didn't have the artillery this time around. And then the fall of Multan happens in January 22nd, 1849. The siege was going on and Mulraj surrenders and is imprisoned for life. Then the Battle of Gujarat occurs. And this is where shit just gets fucked, right? The Sikh artillery is destroyed. The Sikh army is pursued and defeated, and it's a British victory. This is just like, we didn't have the firepower. We kept losing it, right? They're just like, you know, you just think like, oh, 50 guns are good enough, right? But if you have 50 guns and the enemy has 63, like, numbers matter here, man. This is logistics. Logistics is about the nitty-gritty in life, okay? And, like, you need to care about this. You know, when your homies are going out and you don't have a DD and you guys just going to figure on the go, you end up with dumb shit that ends up happening. Those are, like, logistics, in essence. And so the Sikh cavalry, this is a picture of them surrendering their arms at Rawalpindi. So the army basically has to give up their weapons slowly. Their nagare, their drums, their battle drums, all their weapons. They have to give it up for the British. Just complete embarrassing. And this is the last sunset, you can call it. March 29th, 1849, the Sikh Empire is dissolved and Punjab is annexed. The document signed in Lahore by ministers and Dalip Singh. Dalip Singh is removed from power and taken to London, and British Raj officially begins. RIP, R.I.P. You know, we just didn't have the numbers concentrated. It was probably a situation where, like, we just didn't have that. You know, you lose the 10,000 at Sobraon, you lose the 10 to 30,000 at Kali Nihang Singhs, and now like how many soldiers are really going to be in a fort? Like 2,000-3,000 max maybe, and some other gathering here and there. But the British are enforced. The British have all their logistics, their supply lines. Like, they're set up for war, right? This is more of a rebellion where you're like half-assing everything. By Maharaj Singh, a very trippy character. He's the most wanted and continued the resistance against the British, and he attempts a rebellion in Hoshiarpur and is arrested in 1850, exiled to Singapore in solitary confinement. And he passes away in jail 6 years later in Singapore, and there's a tomb or some sort of memorial like there to this day that like locals were going to. Like, there was like an energy that Bhai Maharaj Singh apparently had that people were just like, yo, what's going on here, bro? Like, this is like, holy fuck. Like, and you hear like really trippy accounts of it. And so, you know, J.S. Garwal, the Sikhs of the Punjab, you read it. Like, listen, if you want to read the whole thing, go for it. You want to be an academic nerd and shit, like, you know, I support. But my thing is like, you learn this kind of stuff, you know, who gives a fuck if you have a degree and shit or not. You can learn for yourself and educate and stuff. And so I would say this, right? Like, this is our biggest takeaways, right? We see why we lose. We don't have forward thinking. We have this fucking, it's like we have no brains, we have brawn, right? In this sheer battle ability, we pop the fuck off, okay? That's amazing. That's beautiful. But we don't have the brainiac side. We have too many cowboys, not enough nerds. And then sometimes in our history, you have too many nerds, not enough cowboys. Right? And so that's why Sikh is all about the Sant Sapai. You want the cowboy and the nerd part all kind of meshed into one. And so today, when I talk to some dippers, when I talk to Punjabis, they're brain dead. Their soch is so small, right? And that's what we're basically missing out on with our people. We need to get to a level where we can take the British, take the Western civilization at their own level, which I will talk about in another episode. And, you know, that one will get, like, I get pretty heated about that one in that situation as well. But I just think that, like, this is a time to reflect. It's always a time to reflect of, like, all our past comings and how our failures have happened as, you know, Sikhs in the past, and just, like, our place in the world. Because, like, Sikhi is, you know, they're like, Punjab, what is the future of Punjab? You know, there's conversions happening, you know, Sikhs are leaving Punjab and coming out to the West. Like, how do we deal with these new situations, right? Where the diaspora, like, what is the future of the diaspora going to be and all these things? And so, you know, getting educated and living that life, man, you know, that's why I'm always like, yo, become Khalsa, bro. Like, it is the best thing that you can possibly do for you and your bloodline. And I'm truly, like, all for it. I massively support anyone that's getting down into that road, because, like, look, man, there's still honor in this loss. We lost. We fully lost. They fucked us. But what was the Sikh Empire at that point anyways? Was it Sikh really? Yeah, I would argue that it wasn't really even a Sikh empire. It was like an empire where people just happened to be Sikhs as well. Like Ranjit Singh wasn't, he's controversial as like how much of a Sikh he is, right? The Akali Nihangs, they didn't have power. So it's a bit of like a toss-up of what it means that like it was a Sikh empire. Like, yes, technically like that's where we had situations and stuff. And like we did amazing stuff. We started creating art. We had like what we did in that 40 years of time is like amazing, right? You have these different situations of art being created, architecture. You have these Europeans coming in. Like, we kind of had the understanding more so than anybody else, but just timing, man. And that's the thing with Punjab. Like, if it's not the British coming from it's very interesting also. Like, this is one of the first times in history where our fights weren't happening from the Western Front. From Afghanistan and from Iran, Iraq, like we weren't getting enemies from that side like we historically do. We were getting them from the Malwa side, from India, it's not the Delhi Sultanate, the Mughals coming in. It's the British coming in from the south, which was like a completely different experience, right? And we were ready, like technically speaking, but when you just like listen, like, yeah, even for how powerful we were at the Battle of Sobraon, if your tactics are just bad, like bad tactics can lose a battle even when you're superior in number. That's seen throughout history. It doesn't matter your will truly to fight if your battle tactics are bad, right? Sarah Payne talks about this all the time with like the Japanese situation, where their logistics and supply lines are like horrible, and you need good logistics and supply lines if you want to survive in war in like in a meaningful way. And so it is what it is, right? I think the best way to go about this is like, what's the future of the Khalsa, future of the Sikhs, right? And that's why I believe in Operation Kudzu. I believe in the Japan plan. And if you're in our Discord, you would know what that's about. And this anime and there's other cool stuff coming up. If you're this far in the episode, you'll see it on our stories, on everything. But you know what? Like, I believe that, like, every culture, every civilization goes through its losses, but that's never gonna like mean everything, right? Like, look at, like, I really look up to the Medicis, right? And Lorenzo Medici, by the end of his life, he's outcasted out of Florence and stuff, and people kind of hate him, but like, he has an outlasting legacy, right? And the Khalsa belongs to the Guru Panth and Akal Purakh. And I think that, like, I'm a degenerate. I also want to say that, so don't think of me like, I'm not the fucking Khalsa-esque. Like, I want to believe that I'm Khalsa, but like, yeah, I do fuck shit. It is what it is, man. So, with that, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. It just kind of bums me out, man. I'm just like depressed when I think about this episode. Just for like how fucked it is when you see that we could have won. You rewatch videos by the Gore, they go, we could have won. Like, everyone is just like perplexed at the fact that we didn't win. And I hope one day our Sikh history, Khalsa history, will change in the world and we can become the thing that we so long sought it to be. And yeah, peace out.